Hi everyone, so in this video we are going to discuss the remaining question that we have not covered in the class for the topic 4.2. So before we move on to the discussion, I just want to remind you again that you should have attempted all the question here before you watch the video, because or else it will lose the meaning of exercise when you directly just look at the discussion video and then write down your answer. Okay, so do make sure that you have actually completed all the question before you move on for the video for further discussion. All right. Okay, so we'll start from page 86 first, the question about Anthony and Brian. So they invest 4,500 in the accounts that earning compound interest for a period of 4 years. So the question said that Anthony places his money in an account earning interest at the rate of 3.24% per annum compounded quarterly. So question 1, the question asks us to complete the table that shows the value of Anthony's investment at the end of each of the quarter. Okay, so for this question, because the question didn't ask for recursive rule first, I mean, of course, you can answer the recursive rule question first, then you generate the sequence in the calculator and then answer the part 1. That's all fine. So it all depends on your preference. Okay, so in this case, if let's say you are going to do the question like according to the sequence, then what you can do is that, from the first year to the second year, that it's earning the interest rate, but then this is the yearly one, so we need to change it to quarterly first, right? So that's why you can just do it in your calculator, like 4,536.45 multiply 1 plus, so the interest rate is 4 per annum, so that's why change it to decimal and then divide by 4. Okay, so from there, then you should be able to get the first number here after the first quarter, which make sure that you round it to correct 2 DP for all the money. So 4573.20. Okay, so after you get the, sorry for that. So after you get the value, then after that, continue to find the second one, right? Okay, then after that, you can do the same thing, but you are using the answer that you got just now. Okay, then continue to multiply this number, or you can use the exactly same thing as well and do power 2 lah. You are going to get the same answer. Okay, so from there, then we got 4610.24. Okay, so that's the value for the first 2 quarters. Okay, so for part 2, they're asking for the recursive rule. Okay, so you know that the money that you have in the next quarter is going to be the quarter now, then multiplied by the value that we are multiplying just now, right? Which is 1 plus 0.0324 over 4. Okay, so writing down the recursive rule. So Tn plus 1 equal to 1 plus 0.0324 over 4 Tn. Okay, and then remember for your first term, okay, which is 4,500. Okay, so do make sure that we always use the original value, which means the initial amount of money, which is 4,500, instead of using T1. Okay, because the reason being is that for some time, I mean, this value is a value that without rounding off, then it's fine. But that might be a situation that your T0, after multiplying this value, then you actually rounded off something when you are doing T1. Then when you continue to use the T1 as your first term, then everything will, the answer will be slightly different as you move on. Okay, so that's why always make sure that you are using T0 instead of T1. Okay, so we use 4,500 instead of using this value. Okay, so since this is a number that can be simplified, so that's why we are going to simplify the value equal to 1.0081 Tn, and then T0 is 4,500. Okay, all right, before I forget, so for the question A1, I think it's quite straightforward. So each of the value will give you 1 mark. Then after that, for the part 2, then you should have the initial value correctly, which is your T0, and then the correct value. Okay, so it actually doesn't matter whether you are writing this or this. Okay, so either way will be fine. But just for the for a safer reason, then it's better that you can write down this step first if let's say you were to simplify. Okay, so that's the 2 marks that given for the question. Okay, now we move on to the next page. Okay, so the question said that for Brian Wise, so he places the money in an account that earning interest daily. So after 4 years, the value of both Anthony's and Brian's investment is the same. So the question asks, explain how the change to the compounding period has affected the annual rate of interest required for the value for Brian's investment to be the same as that of Anthony. So include the calculation to support your answer. Okay, so basically what the question is asking is that, so okay, let me try to put in the situation here, but it's fine that you don't need to draw this, but I just want to explain a bit what the question is asking. Okay, so just now we talked about Anthony's situation, right? So that's why just now, okay, we talk about Anthony. Okay, and then the question said that they are both starting from 4,500 ma. That's what we got from the question, like for this part. And then their period are all for 4 years. Okay, so for both Anthony and Brian, they both start with 4,500. Okay, and then this is their present value lah. Okay, then after that, they are keeping it for 4 years. For both are the same. Okay, then after that, but the question said that now Brian's account earning the interest daily. So which means that the CPY for Anthony's account just now is quarterly, right? But then for Brian now it's daily. Okay, then now the question said that after 4 years, their value for both of their account is the same. So which means that their FV is the same after 4 years. And this value you can actually get from here. Okay, because this is where you have 16 quarter when the money is invested, right? So 16 quarters means 4 years. So which means after 4 years, then they both have 5,120. Okay, and the question asks that how the change to the compounding period, which means from quarterly to daily, has changed the annual rate of interest required. So which means that you are so-called finding the I here. Is that okay? So that's basically what you are doing here. Okay, so in this case, because we need to find the I, then which means the only way that we can do this is through finance solver. Because if let's say we don't have the I, then we can't generate the sequence in the spreadsheet. Okay, so that's why we have the N. Okay, so make sure that for this question, it's just a pure compound interest question, meaning that you just invest a lump sum of money in the account and you didn't withdraw or you didn't, you didn't deposit more money in a future, in a future time. Okay, so that's why the N here will just follow number of interest compounded. Okay, so this is earning interest daily and for 4 years. So 4 multiplied 365. Okay, so you can just straight away get the value from your calculator when you are keying in the value, or else then you can just find the value first through your calculator. Okay, so the PV, same for both Brian and also Anthony, and we are talking about invest this amount, so that's why negative. Okay, and we have PMT is 0. Okay, because there's no further deposit or you didn't withdraw any money, right? Then the FV, okay, they achieve the same financial result, which is 5120, and we are talking about investment. So at the end of the day, the money is supposed to belong to you. So that's why 5,120. Okay, so we don't have PMT, so PPY follows CPY, which is daily. So PPY and CPY are both 365. Okay, so as you key in the entire thing in your calculator, so I hope that by now you should be able to do that already. Okay, but then I'm just going to do this very quickly. Okay, so we have, yeah, you can straight away multiply actually. So 4 multiply 365 and the calculator will straight away give you the value. So negative 45, oops, sorry, negative 4500, PMT 0, 5120, 365, 365. Okay, so the I then we should be able to get 3.227. Okay, so from there we have I equals to 3.227. Okay, so this is the part for calculation to support the answer, but the question asks us to explain how to change for the compounding period. So what you realize is that previously for Anthony, sorry for that, I should put that in. So previously for Anthony, it's 3.24%. So you realize that if, let's say, the interest is compounded quarterly, then if let's say the interest is compounded quarterly, then the I that you need is 3.24. Whereas for now, when the interest is compounded daily, then the interest rate that you need is 3.227. So that's why you can see that it's slightly lesser than whatever you need because of you are now compounding the interest like much more frequently. Okay, so that's why to explain that, then we can just put into one sentence. So which means that as you increase the frequency, so increasing the compounding period, increasing the compounding period from quarterly to daily reduces the required annual interest rate. Okay, so that's how you answer for this question. Okay, so for this question is a 3 marks question. So that's why the part where you're working will give you 1 mark. Then after that, solving and get the I, you get 1 mark. Then your explanation will give you 1 mark. Okay, so that's for this question. And now we'll be looking at the next question.
Now we'll be looking at the page 90. So the question about Kobe and Grant. Okay, so they are investigating the possibility of purchasing their own apartment. So they will need to open an account to save for a deposit. So they make initial contribution for 7,000. So you know that this is the principal for the investment. Then after that, at the end of each month, they are going to add 800 as a regular deposit. So this account will give an interest of 2.6% and compounded monthly. Okay, so that's why in this case, you know that you are talking about the situation where you are going to earn interest every month, and at the same time, at the end of each month, you are going to deposit like further 800. Okay, so how much would that be in the account at the end of the 2 year? So for this question, if the question didn't ask for recursive rule, then I'll highly encourage you to just go for finance solver. But then if let's say you think that you are more familiar with recursive rule, then you can go ahead. But like what I said, I still much encourage you to go for finance solver if let's say the question didn't ask anything about recursive rule. Okay, so how much would that be in the account at the end of the 2 years? So basically you are finding FV. I think this question is quite straightforward. So your N is number of payment. So number of payment here refer to the regular deposit. So at the end of the 2 year and you make your deposit every month, then which means you will be doing 24 deposit. Okay, so that's why 24 times of payment. Okay, then continue with the I, 2.6%. Okay, our PV is your principal. So you start off with 7,000 and you save this amount of money in the bank. So that's why negative 7,000. And your regular deposit, you also save this in the bank, right? So that's why the money flow from you to the bank. So that's why negative 800. Then continue, we are finding our FV. So we skip that first. So PPY here is payment per year. So you make your deposit every month. So that's why 12 times per year. And CPY referring to how many times your interest is compounded per year. So your interest is compounded monthly. So that's why also 12. Okay, so after finding that, then you should be able to find your FV. So I'm not going to show the calculator. You should be able to do that. So if you didn't get this question correctly, then you can try out, pause the video and try out again in your calculator. Okay, so that's your answer. So if you are using recursive rule, then you should be finding T24, but I'm not going to show it here because like what I said, if the question didn't ask anything about recursive rule, just go ahead and do finance solver. Okay, then continue. Kobe and Grant are willing to pay for 280,000 for the apartment and will require an additional 22,000 in fees associated with the purchase. So instead of qualify for this bank loan, they will need a deposit of 20% of the total cost. Okay, so that's why the question is asking, showing that the required deposit is 60,400. Okay, so that's why 60,400 supposed to be 20% of the total cost. So that's why the total cost needed to buy this apartment is going to be the cost for the apartment, which is 280,000, and then plus the 22,000 for the fee. Okay, and you go ahead and calculate the 20%, then you should be able to get 60,400. Okay, so that's how you show. So the working part itself will give you 1 mark because the question already give you 60,400. Okay, oops, sorry, just a very quick one for the previous question. Okay, so the working part will give you 2 marks. So basically the first thing that they are looking at is the correct, and then after that all the correct other element, then after that your FV. Okay, so for this question is the working itself will give you 1 mark because the answer is actually given. You are just going to prove it. Okay, so part 2, how long will it take to save enough for the deposit? Okay, so in this case, you are referring back to the investment that you have just now also. Okay, so after 2 years, then you only have 27,000 plus, right? So if you want to save up to 60,400, then which means you need more than 2 years. Okay, so in this case, then we have to find the N then. So we start with the I, which is 2.6%, because we are finding the N, so we leave it first. So I is 2.6. So PV and PMT doesn't change because you are still talking about the same saving account. So continue with the PMT negative 800. So you want to save enough for the deposit, then which means that you are planning to reach an FV of 60,400. So remember, for this part, your FV is supposed to be a positive value because that's the value that you are going to withdraw from your bank at the end of the time that when you want to pay for your deposit, right? So that's why it's supposed to be flowing from the bank back to you. So that's why it's positive. Okay, so PPY, CPY doesn't change because you are talking about the exactly same situation. Okay, so when you put everything in your calculator, then you should be able to get your N equals to 61.3 months. Okay, but you are not going to pay any money like at the 0.3 months. So that's why technically you will need 62 months. Okay, so remember that for this question, you cannot go and round off like the normal one, like 61.3. Normally you are round to 61, right? But you cannot do that because you can understand that if let's say you only save it for 61 months, actually you are not able to reach 60,400 yet. So that's why you need to wait until another month when you save when you save another 800, then you will be having more than 60,400. So that's where you save enough for the deposit. Okay, so for this question, you are having your working part for 1 mark. Then after that, determine 62 months, you get the second mark. Okay, question C. If at the end of the 2 years, their parents agree to give them a total of 10,000 as a reward for their dedicated saving of effort, determine the minimum monthly contribution that they need to make if, let's say, they want to have enough for the full deposit after 4 years. Okay, so for this question, 2 things that we need to look at. The first one is that at the end of the 2 year, then what the parents did is that the parents give them like extra 10,000 as a reward. Okay, so you can understand that, which means at the end of the 2 year, the value that you have is your answer from part A, okay, which is the result for their own saving, and then plus the 10,000 that given by their parents. Okay, and the question say that if let's say they want to be able to save for the full deposit after 4 years, so find out what is the minimum monthly contribution, which means that you are going to look at the same FV, which is 60,400, and then you are finding the PMT if let's say you want your N to become 24. So why 24? Because the after 4 years supposed to be including the 2 years that you are supposed to include the 2 years before the parents agree to give them a total of 10,000. Okay, maybe for me to, if let's say you can understand what I mean, then you can go, fast forward a bit. But if let's say you can't, then I'm going to draw a timeline. Maybe that's going to help you to understand it better. Okay, so we start off with 7,000, right? So let me. Okay, so we start off with 7,000 here. And for the first 2 years, so what happened is that you do your regular payment, okay, regular deposit of 800. Okay, and after 2 years, you know that you are having 27,059.30. So based on this question, the parents is going to give them 10,000 as a reward at the end of the 2 year, which is here. So your amount in your account will plus 10,000 over here. Okay, then after that, the question said that they want to reach an amount of 60,400 at the end of after 4 years, which means the 4 years supposed to be include the 2 years over here. Okay, so that's why, which means that you need another 2 years to be able to reach the value. Okay, so the question asks how much regular monthly payment, okay, regular deposit that I need to save so that I'll be able to reach 60,400 after another 2 years lah. Okay, so which means after 4 years starting here. Okay, so that's why it's supposed to be 2 there. Okay, so when we are solving this question, then which means you are finding PMT. So our n is 24. Okay, because you are going to start from over the situation here now, right? So that's why your I doesn't change, continue with 2.6. Okay, your PV is going to be the value that you have after the parents give them 10,000. So that's why you are going to save starting from negative 37,059.30. Okay, so you are finding PMT, so you leave it blank. So the FV that you are going to achieve at the end is 60,400. Then after that, continue with your PPY, which is 12, CPY, which is 12, which doesn't change. Okay, so key in all this in your calculator, then you should be able to get your answer as your PMT. Okay, you should get it in negative value because that's the value that you are going to pay to the bank for saving, right? Okay, so after you write the answer, then you write it one more time lah. Okay, so the minimum monthly contribution for how much? Okay, so rewrite your answer and then without the negative sign. Okay, so that's the answer for this question. Okay, so for this question, there are you can see that compared to the previous question, which is 2 marks, now they give 3 marks. Reason being is that you need to find the PV by yourself. Okay, to understand that PV is found by using your value in part A and then plus the 10,000. So that's the first mark. So all the rest of the number here getting it correct, you get your second mark. I think especially is the 24 here to answer from the question. Okay, so after you get your answer for PMT, then you correctly to find your answer without the negative sign, okay, which is 868.22, then you will be able to get the third mark. Okay, so that's this question for page 90.
Next one, we'll be looking at page 94. So Marco is a plumber and 3 years ago, he purchased a vehicle that cost 48,000 for his business. So he paid a deposit of 5,000 and then acquired a personal loan for the remainder. Okay, so make sure that the loan is for the remainder, not for the total value. Okay, so and then the interest rate is 22.5% per annum compounded monthly, and he agrees to pay repayment of 1,000 at the end of each month. Okay, so you can realize that the CPY and PPY is the same here because the interest rate is compounded monthly and then the repayment also is made monthly. Okay, so use the recursive rule to determine the amount that Marco currently owes on the loan. Okay, so same thing, we have Tn plus 1. Okay, so because the bank charged an interest of 92.5%, so which means the value that he will be owing in the next month will be increased by 22.5% per month. So 0.225 over 12. Okay, so make sure that you change the interest rate to percent. Sorry, change the interest rate to decimal. Okay, and then as he repay $1,000, then that's where the amount of he is currently owing decreases. Okay, and then we have T0. So that's the part that need to be a bit careful. So he purchased the vehicle with 48,000, but he already paid the deposit of 5,000. So that's why the amount that he borrowed the loan will be 43,000. Okay, so same thing, if let's say you are using your calculator and you realize that this is a value that can be simplified, then which means it will be good that you simplify. Oops, sorry, I left out the Tn here. Okay, so Tn minus 1,000. Okay, and then T0 is 43,000. Okay, so from that, then you can just generate this in your calculator. So yeah, go back to your, of course, if you want to use finance solver to do this also is fine. Okay, but then since the question asks for recursive rule, so might as well we just continue from there. Okay, so you can type in the value that you have already simplified, or else you want to use the original one, type the entire thing, also no issue. So initial term 43,000. Okay, so from there, the first term is the T0, so that's why we continue. And if you want to find out the value after 3 years, okay, oh, sorry, how do you know after 3 years? Because the question said 3 years ago, okay, so you want to find out how much he's still owing for now. Okay, so that's why the first row is the T0, so that's why you need to read the 37 row for the T36. Okay, so make sure that you check the rounding at the bottom of your screen of your calculator. So it's a 37 row, but we still need to write T36, and from there we have 33,164.78. Okay, so the question, so for this question, the 3 marks will be given for be able to write down the recursive rule, then identifying the initial value successfully, which is the value after 5,000, then after that your T36. Okay, so part 2, determine how much longer it will take him to completely pay off the loan. So remember, the idea is how much longer, okay? So that's why after you find the answer, then you still need to minus the 36 here. So because of we are already generating the recursive rule here, so that's why the easier way is to just continue in your in the spreadsheet. Okay, so this is the value that when it first started to become negative. So from there, we can get T88. Okay, so the 89th row is actually the T88. Okay, so T88 is 343.67. And then T89, we have negative 649.89. Okay, so from that, we need to exclude the 36 months in the previous, the previous one that already settled. So which means that we need to use 89 minus 36, and from there we get 53. Okay, so how much longer? Then which means you still need extra 53 months. Okay, so always make sure that when the question asks how long and do stuff, then you must make sure that you write down the unit correctly. Okay, so which means like, is it 43 months? Is it 43 quarters or 43? Sorry, is it 53 months, 53 quarters, or like 53 years? Okay, so do make sure that you always put in the unit when they ask for how long. Okay, so part B, after 3 years, Marco finds that the vehicle is now only worth 27,150. Determine the average rate of depreciation for the vehicle expressed as a percentage. Okay, so that's why let's try to write down. Okay, so the initial value for the vehicle is 48,000 as given in the question. So we know that after 3 years, then the question said that the vehicle now is only worth as 27,150. Okay, so I will show you like 2 ways. It just depends on how you want to understand it. Okay, so the first thing is that because the rate of depreciation is in average, then which means that we can understand that from 48,000 to this value, then what happened is that you will multiply the value like for 3 times. Am I right? So like multiply the, okay, I am going to use, maybe not use R to make it less. Okay, let's say A. So you will multiply the rate for 3 times for the 3 years. So after 1 year, after 2 years, after 3 years, then you get this value. So first way that you can do it is that 48,000 then multiply A power 3, that gives you 2,750. Okay, so from that, then you should be able to solve, you can just use your normal calculator. Okay, so from that, then you have 27,150 over 48,000. Okay, so that's the value. And let's say you want to solve the cube, right? Then which means it should be cube root. So cube root of the answer, then that's the value that you get. So X or the A here is given as 0.827. Okay, so which means what happened is that this is the remaining value for the vehicle over each year. So which means that after 1 year, the remaining value is the 82.8% of the previous value. Then the next year is going to be another 82.7% of the previous year. Okay, so if you want to find the rate of depreciation, then we are taking the 100%, then minus 82.7%. So from there, we get 17.3%. Okay, or else I'll show you the other way. I mean, it depends on which one you understand better. Okay, so for the other way, I'll just explain it like this. So imagine if let's say now I tell you that the value of your depreciation is 5%. So over 3 years. Okay, so normally what you will do is, isn't it, you will do multiply 0.95, am I right? So how do you get the 0.95 is that you get the 100%, then you minus the 5, or you change the 5% to 0.05 and you use 1 minus, am I right? So which means that you will do 1 minus, then you take the 5% divide by 100, right? So that's how you get 0.05 and 1 minus, you get 0.95, and you do it for 3 years, so that's why power 3. Okay, so it's the same idea here also, which means that the value that we are having now, which is the 48%, the color, okay, which is the 48,000. Okay, we will multiply by 1 minus the rate that we are interested to find, which is just now I say assume that it's 5%. Okay, but we are finding the percent now. Okay, over 100 for 3 years, and then equals to 27150. Okay, so from there you should be able to get the same thing. So when you are solving this part, then isn't it you will repeat the same thing, which you move this to the other side, and when you solve the cube, then it will be cube root, right? So that's where you get 1 minus r over 100, then that's where you get 0.827 also. Okay, so you move this to the front, move this to the back, then that's where you get r over 100 equals to 0.173. So from there, then you get R equals to 17.3%. Okay, so both are acceptable here. It just depends on how you want to answer the question. Okay, so for this question, the idea should be able to solve the entire equation will give you 1 mark. Then after that, your final answer 1 mark. Okay, which means if you are referring to this, then which means your first line will give you 1 mark, then you're solving, then getting your last answer will be giving you 1 mark. Okay, so either way to answer this 2 marks question. Okay, so that's part B. Okay, then after that, we move on for part C. So when Marco originally took out a personal loan for the purchase of the vehicle, he was given 2 options by the financial institution. So one is to increase the monthly repayment by 200, and the other one is maintaining the repayment at $1,000, but then reducing the interest rate to 18.5. So the question asks, for which option should Marco goes with? I mean, when you consider about the time taken to pay off the loan and also the total pay. Okay, so which means based on these 2 situations, then these are the 2 things that you need to find out. The first one is, how long do you need to pay off the loan? Okay, because the question asks in terms of the time taken to pay off, right? Then the second one is, what is the total pay that, Marco needs to pay in order to own the vehicle? Okay, so I need to go through like both of the option here. Okay, so the first one, we are talking about increasing the repayment. Okay, so increasing the monthly repayment to 200, sorry for that. Okay, so that's the first scenario. Okay, let's solve for that first. Okay, so in this case, then by using finance solver will be easier, because in that case, you don't need to keep on like changing your recursive rule. So you can just change whatever element that you need to change, okay? So we are finding the N. Okay, so the I still the same, which is 22.5%. So PV, the loan, the value is 43,000. Okay, PMT. So the payment now become 1,200. Okay, because the previous one is 1,000, right? So you want to increase by 200, then which means it's 1,200, and it's negative because you return the money. So the money flow from you to the bank. So FV is 0. We are talking about when is the time that you pay off the loan. Okay, PPY and CPY is 12. Okay, so from that, in your calculator, then you should be able to get n equals to 59.988, which will be equal to 60 months. Okay, so same thing, do make sure that every time when you're answering question about n, remember to write down the unit. Okay, and we need to find out the total pay as well, because we need to compare these two for the both scenario. Okay, so for the total pay, then which means that we start off with we have 1,200. Okay, and we are paying it for how much? We are paying it for 59 months. Okay, and remember, because this value is not exactly 60, right? Then that's where you got final payment. Okay, so for this question, it's not compulsory to show the entire part for how do you get your final payment. Reason being is that it's just a 5 marks question, so that's why you should be able to guess that the idea is that time taken and total paid for each scenario will make up of 2 marks and 2 marks. Then after that, your final decision and also your Y will be giving you the 5th mark. Okay, so when you are, so that's why for this question, it's important for us to go back the part where why knowing how to find out your final repayment directly from your finance solver is important. Okay, so yeah, let me just quickly put in the value. Okay, so the end here. Okay, so once you get this, then what you can try to do is you need 60 months more, then which means 60 months is the month that you pay extra already. So you can just change it to 60, then after that you find your FV. So you should be able to get a positive value. Reason being is that that's the money that you pay extra. So that's why the bank will need to pay it to you. So the money flow from the bank to you. So it's a positive. Okay, so and then you take the 1,200, which is the normal repayment, and then you minus the extra one you have repaid. Okay, so of course, the other option that you can do is instead of 60, you can do 59. So which means that after you pay for the 59 repayment, then this is the amount that you are still owing. Okay, then you just use the value then plus the final value that you are still the final interest that the bank would charge you, then from there you should be able to get the same answer as well. Okay, so which means the alternative for this one is you can also do 1163 point. But remember, if you are using this method, it's good for you to take more than 2 DP, because or else your answer can be slightly different. Okay, so that's the value that you get, and don't forget that Marco has already paid the the 5,000 deposit, so that's why plus 5,000. Okay, so the total paid that Marco paid for the vehicle will be 76,985.76. Okay, so that's the first option. Sorry. Okay, the second option is to reduce the interest rate. Okay, so which means that you will do exactly same thing, but then changing your I to 18.5 and then change your PMT back to 1,000. Okay, and the way for you to solve it will be exactly the same. Which is to find the n first, then after that try to find out the final value, then the total paid as well. Okay, so yeah, let's do this. Okay, so we change this to 18.5 and then the value kept the same. Okay, so the second option, you will need 71.08 for your n. Sorry for that. Okay, 71.08, and it will be up to 72 months. Okay, so same thing, like this value is not exact 72, so that's why you know that there's supposed to be a final payment that you will need to find. Okay, so the total pay, you pay $1,000 for 71 months, and then for the final months, you are paying either changing this value to 72, find the FV, so this is the value that you have paid extra. Okay, so that's why finding the value that you are paying, and this is the extra value that you have paid. So after you minus, then you get the value that you're supposed to pay. Okay, so of course, the same thing, you can also do 71. Okay, find out your MV. So from this value, then you take the value, you take this value, and then to multiply 1 plus 0.185 divided by 12, then you should be able to get the same thing as well. Okay, so that's alternative that you can do. So plus 5,000. So from there, then we should be able to get 76,078.56. Okay, so for this part, then you already get 4 marks. So which means the first mark will be given for, you know, be able to find out the 60 months, then the total pay. So 72 months and also the total pay. Okay, and for the last mark, it will be based on the part where how you justify the answer on which one that you have chosen. Okay, so you can see that actually based on the, you know, the period of time that you need to pay off the loan, then getting the first option is better because you can finish off the loan within a shorter period. Am I right? But then in terms of the total pay, then the second option is better because the interest, the total that you are paying for the loan is lesser than, which means that the interest that you are paying off is lesser as well. Okay, so just to let you know that in the reality, like in a real life scenario, that normally second one is the one that will be going off because imagine that as you drag the period of time longer, and yet you still need to pay off the less interest, then which mean that you can use the money, you know, to do something else that you want to do instead of like putting all in the loan, because at the end of the day, the interest that you are paying is still lesser than this one. Okay, but in order to answer this question, there are two ways that you can answer, because the money that you are paying at the end of the day wasn't is not like different a lot as well. So for the part for like which one he should go for, it will be much depends on which way you want to explain it, as long as you are able to justify it. Okay, so if let's say you are going for option 1, which means that you choose to settle the loan within a shorter period, then which means that we will say that he, okay, so we can say that he should have chosen to increase the repayment. Okay, as he would have paid off the loan sooner. Okay, and he only need to pay an extra 907. Okay, so that's the value that you are getting from here. I think we can find out the exact value. 76 minus. Yeah, so that's the value that you will need to pay off extra. Okay, so which means that in your justification, you should be able to understand that if you choose to pay off the loan sooner, but you need to understand what is the, you know, the cons of it, which is you need to pay extra. So you need to explain that in your answer also. Okay, so for if let's say you are choosing the second one, then which means it will be quite straightforward already. So he should have chosen because yeah, I think that's quite straightforward because basically the value that you need to pay for the vehicle is much more lesser. Okay, so he should have chosen the reduced interest rate. Yes, we would pay less, okay, for the car. Okay, so yeah, either of the answer, then you should be able to get the 5th mark. So it's actually depends on how you understand the situation and how you justify your stand for the one that you are choosing. Okay, so that is this question, and we move on for the next one.
Next one, let's look at page 97. So for this question, you realize that the question is slightly longer when you compare to the previous one. So the thing is that you just make sure that you read everything properly and make sure you don't miss out any, information when you are solving the question. Okay, so the question says that Charles turns 60 years old today. So he has been saving for his retirement when he reaches 65. So which means that he planned to, retire at 65 years old. And now he has this 465,000 to put towards this retirement. So his plan is to have an amount of 6,075,000 by the time he retire, so that he can set out a pension fund that he will be paid an annuity each year, which means that he want to withdraw an amount every year. So the question says that Charles invests the money in an account that earning interest at 3.35% per annum, where the interest is calculated and added to the account at the end of each month. So that's why in this case, your CPY is 12. Okay, so at the same time, he will also deposit an additional amount at the end of each month. So that's why your PPY is 12. So determine the monthly deposit required by Charles if let's say he want to reach his goal by 65th birthday. Okay, so the first thing when you try to look at this question, when you are finding the monthly deposit, meaning that you are finding PMT here, so that's why the only way to do this is to do finance solver. So today he just turned 60 years old, right? So which means that when he reach 65th birthday, then it's going to be 5 years. So you can try to understand it like today he just got his 60th birthday, right? So 60 to 61 is 1 year. Then after that to 62 to 63 to 64, then to 65. So that's why it's 5 years. You are doing this monthly, you are doing this regular deposit monthly. So that's why it's 12 times per year. So that's why the end here is 60. Okay, so I is given by the question 3.35. So your PV, you're going to start off this investment account with the value that he has currently, right, which is 465,000. So you save this amount of money, so that's why negative. And you are finding the PMT. So our FV here is the goal that he want to reach, which is 675,000. So just now when we go through the question, we have already agreed that the PPY is 12 because the regular deposit is made monthly. Your interest is also compounded monthly, so that's why both 12. So key in all this in your calculator, then you should be able to get your PMT in negative, okay, negative 1921.80101. Okay, then 80, yeah, correct. Okay, so from there, then you rewrite your answer again to write it in properly, without negative sign. Then after that, 2 decimal place. Okay, so for this question, the 1 mark will be given for identifying your n correctly, okay, which is 12 multiply 5. Then all the other working correctly. Then after that, your final answer without negative sign. Okay, so that's part A. I think that's quite straightforward. The only thing is just that you need some time to, go through the information properly and to identify what do they want. Okay, so as we continue from here, the question said that assuming that Charles manages to save the 670th birthday, so he will set up his pension fund. So this fund will earn interest, okay, at 3.25% per annum compounded monthly. Okay, and at the same time, he will withdraw an annuity of 60 withdraw. 65,000 each year. So that's why your PPY here is 1, because your withdrawal is made yearly. Okay, so that's why PPY is 1. So determine the number of years that you will be able to receive this annuity. So the only thing that you need to be careful is when they say receive this annuity, which means that you are how long will he be able to receive this 65,000? So that's why when you are, thinking about the round up or round down, then you need to be a bit careful for this. Okay, so for this question, you are finding the N because you are looking at how many annuity can he actually receive, right? So that's why we continue with other information. So I is 3.25 given by the question. Your PV, you are starting your annuity of 675,000. So it's supposed to be negative because you put this amount in the bank to earn interest, right? So every year you are withdrawing 65,000. So that's why 65,000 is positive because you withdraw the money flow from the bank to you. And after that, you are finding how many years you will be receive this annuity, which means until the annuity dies. So that's why FV is 0. So PPY follow the number of withdrawal you made every year. So that's why your withdrawal is made yearly, each year, 1 time. So that's why it's 1. So CPY interest is compounded monthly. So that's why 12. Okay, so this is the question where your CPY and PPY is different lah. Okay, so that's why the easiest way is to straight away use finance solver rather than building the recursive rule might be a bit more challenging. Okay, so key in all this in your calculator, you're supposed to get 12.92. Okay, so in this case, which means that you wouldn't be able to, receive a complete 65,000 for 13 years. Okay, because that's like 0.92. So which means for the last time, you wouldn't be able to withdraw 65,000, the total amount. So that's why in this case, then we will say that it's actually just how many years you will be able to receive this annuity. So this annuity referring to 65,000. Okay, so that's why 12 years. Okay, so only for 12 years, he is able to receive 65,000. And for the last time, it will be lesser than 65,000. So that's how we answer this. Okay, so part 2. So Charles is hopeful that it will be possible for him to continue receiving the annuity until his 85th birthday. Okay, so he decides to find an alternative fund that offering a different interest rate while continuing to withdraw 65,000 each year. So what is the annual interest rate? So that's why you are finding the I. So the only way to solve this question is finance solver, because if you don't have I, then you cannot build your recursive rule. Okay, so that he will be able to, withdraw the money last until his 85th birthday. Okay, so that's why the first thing that we need to find is the N first. So your withdrawal, you are still making it yearly. From 65th birthday until 85th birthday, then you should be able to withdraw 20 times. Okay, so because 20 years, right? So 1 year, 1 time. So that's why 20 in terms of number of payment, which is number of withdrawal here. So I is what we want to find. So PV is the same like your answer in part 1. Okay, so that's the value that you start off with your annuity account. So you are still withdrawing 65,000, so nothing changed. So that will be a day that your annuity dies. So FV is still 0. So you still withdraw 1 time per year. So that's why PPY 1 interest rate still compounded 12 times per year. Okay, so while having all this and putting in your calculator, then you should be able to get I equals to 7.0274778 and continue. Okay, so for this question, you can give 2 or 3 decimal place, then I think it's fine. Okay, so that's why 7.03%. Okay, so that's the question here.
Next question is going to be on page 99. So this is supposed to be a quite straightforward question. The only thing is to understand about the context for differing compounding period for your CPY and also the PPY. Okay, so there's this pension fund by Abby that set up on July 1st for 2016 with a principal of 850,000. So the fund guarantees an annual growth rate of 7.5% compounded monthly, and then she plans to take annuity, which means she plans to withdraw this amount of money, 75,000 each year. Okay, so that's why you realize that the PPY and CPY here is different, because the interest rate compounding monthly, but then the withdrawal is made each year. Okay, so that's why for every question that you are doing, you must make sure that you check these two things, because the question must give you the information about these two so that you are able to proceed. Okay, so calculate the balance in the fund after the annuity is withdrawn in July 2020. Okay, so for every question that the question didn't ask for recursive rule, then just go for finance solver. So which means that we are finding the FV here. Okay, so be mindful that when we are talking about the N is the number of payments. So especially when your PPY and CPY is different, then you must be very careful of this. So N is the number of payment, which means it's the number of withdrawal that you made. Okay, so the question said that the withdrawal is made starting July 1st, 2017. So that's why 2017 is the first time, 2018 second time. 2017 the first time, 2018 the second time, 2019 the third time, and also 2020 is going to be the fourth time, because you are finding the balance after the annuity is withdrawn, okay, in the July 2020. Okay, so that's why the N here is 4, because we have made 4 withdrawal. So I is 7.5%. Okay, PV we have negative 850,000. Okay, so that's the principal, right? Then after that, we are finding the FV. The PMT is the withdrawal. So we withdraw the amount. Okay, so we have positive. Okay, positive 75,000, because we withdraw the money flow from the bank to us, so it's positive. So PPY here is the payment per year, which is withdrawal. Okay, withdrawal is made yearly, so that's why 1. CPY, the interest is made monthly, so that's why CPY is 12. Okay, so you key in the entire thing in your calculator, then that is where you should be able to get the value of 809,531.47. Okay, so it's actually quite straightforward as long as you are able to get the idea of the question. So try to take some time to read the question. Okay, so the first mark, then the second mark. Okay, so part 2, the investment funds revise the annual interest rate to 9% compounding monthly on July 1st, 2020, guarantee for the period to July 2025, and Abby continue withdrawing 75,000 as usual. So calculate the balance in the fund after the withdrawal is made on July 1st, 2025. Okay, so in this case then, which means what happened is that, okay, if you need, then I'll just, okay, so which mean in the starting we have July 1st, 2016, then you start from 850,000. So that's where the first stage is. Okay, until July 1st, 2020. Okay, that's where you have this amount of money. Okay, and this is under the interest rate of 7.5%. So now the question said that from July 1st, 2020, then until July 2025, okay, then it will be under the percentage of 9%. And then the same thing, which is Abby is going to withdraw 75,000 also for each of the year. So that's why the CPY and PPY still the same. The only thing that's different is the interest rate. And also to understand that because we are talking about different stages, so which means that when you are doing 9%, then you need to start from, like, this is where your 0 is already. Okay, then after that, this is where your PV is. So that's why this is where your interest, where your second stage start. So that's why 2021 is going to be your first withdrawal, 2022 is your second, 2023 is the third, fourth, then after that, fifth. Okay, so 2025, after the withdrawal is made, then which means that on July 2025, then she should be able to make the 5th withdrawal already. Okay, so that's why exactly same thing. So N equals to 5. Okay, so after we are talking about changing the interest to 9%, then that would be like 5 withdrawal is made. So I is 9%. So PV is going to be the value that we have by the time when the interest rate is revised. So we have negative 809531.47. Okay, so PMT is excuse me. Okay, so 75,000. So PPY is 1, CPY is 12. Okay, which is exactly the same with the previous question. Okay, so key in all this value in your calculator, which I won't be doing here because you should know how to key in that already. Okay, so you should be able to get this value in your calculator. Okay, so same thing, working will give you 1 mark. Then after that, the final answer is going to give you another 1 mark. Okay, so after that, we move on for part 3. So calculate to the nearest 100 the maximum amount that Abby could withdraw annually starting in 2020 without decreasing her balance. Okay, so which means that now you can imagine that what happened now is that it's changing to the idea for perpetuity. Because if you don't want the balance to decrease, then which means that your FV will keep on the same. If your FV will remain the same, then which means it's a perpetuity, right? So which means that you're supposed to just withdraw how much that you are earning. Okay, so of course, one thing that is that you can use the formula, okay, for compound interest, but definitely the more easier way is just to go with finance formula because you are able to find out the PMT, right? Okay, so the N, okay, you can put any number because we are talking about perpetuity, so which means regardless the number of times that you are withdrawing, you should be able to get the same FV. Okay, so starting 2020, so that's why the PV followed the part 2. Okay, then after that, the FV, we got 809531.47. Okay, so PPY is 1, CPY is 12. Okay, which is the same thing, okay, because you are also talking about withdrawing annually, ma. Okay, and the question didn't say any changes about the CPY. Okay, so that's why CPY is still 12. Okay, so key in all this in your calculator, then we should be able to get the PMT is 75,939.64. Okay, but the question asks for calculate to the nearest $100, the maximum amount. So that's why you should think about how should you round off this. Okay, so the idea is that you need to think about if you're talking about to the nearest $100, which means that it's either you do 75900 or you do 76000. So the idea is that when you're talking about the maximum, right, which means that if you go and round up, then what happened is that the amount that you are withdrawing is actually more than the amount that you actually can withdraw. And in that case, you wouldn't be able to keep the balance already, which means you wouldn't be able to, get your balance didn't increase. Okay, so that's why, which means in this case, the value that she can actually withdraw is going to be 75,900. Okay, so I repeat one more time. What I mean is that no matter your answer is this or your answer is, okay, let's say 979.64. Okay, which means even you get this answer, you shouldn't be rounding up as well, because the idea is that this is the maximum. But then if you want the value to be the nearest 100, then which means you shouldn't be more than this value, right? So that's why no matter what digit that you are getting at your 100 place, then you're supposed to be still doing 900. Okay, so just take note of that. Okay, so that is this question. So be able to write down find out the value up to this part, you should be able to get 1 mark. Then after that, the final answer, knowing how to round it off to the nearest 100, then you get 2nd mark. Okay, so that is this question. Page 100. Okay, Joel has set up a special investment fund that has a current balance of 350,000, and he contributes 7.5% of his monthly income to the investment, and he has an overseas pension that contribute a further 355 per month. Okay, so try to understand the scenario. Okay, so which means that now Joel actually has this is basically the PV. Okay, you can understand it in such. So the initial value is this. Okay, so based on this, then you know, in order to have more money in the investment fund, he actually invests 7.5% of the monthly income, and then the annual salary is given as such. Okay, so later you need to calculate the monthly salary, then after that you find out the 7.5%. Okay, then after that he also has an overseas pension that will actually contribute 355 per month on top of the monthly income also. Okay, so the investment fund has an interest rate of 6.5% per annum compounded monthly. So that's why the CPY and PPY is the same. So the annual salary is this, and he has just turned 60 years of age. Okay, so calculate the total monthly contribution to the fund. Okay, so that's why, like just now what we say, so we need to understand for 7.5% of the monthly income. So 7.5% means 0.075. Okay, so monthly income, we are taking the annual salary, okay, to divide by 12. That's where we get the monthly. And then plus the 355, okay, of the further contribution that contribute by the overseas pension. Okay, so after you plus the value together, then you should be able to get 986.25. Okay, so the working will give you 1 mark. Then after that, your final answer 1 mark. Okay, so part B, calculate the lump sum that he would have received if he retires on his 67th birthday. Okay, so in this case, then we try to understand the how many years. So which means the same thing. We don't the question didn't ask us for recursive rule, so just go for finance solver. Okay, so for the end here, we are talking about number of deposit that he has made, okay, when he retires on 67. So which means that you can understand that for the entire year for 60, okay, because he has just turned 60 years of age, so which means that from, you can understand it like this. Okay, from 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67. So this is all the birthday. Okay, so he just turned 60 years of age here, then which means that it's going to be 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 years, 6 year, then 7 year, then until the day that birthday again. Okay, so that's why there's total of 7 years for this investment fund, and we are doing it for monthly deposit. So that's why 12 multiply 7, which we got 84. So I is 6.5%. Okay, so don't be confused. 7.5% has nothing to do with the investment. It's just talking about 7.5% of the monthly income. But the investment fund give 6.5% per annum. Okay, so PV is the value, the initial value that the investment fund starts off. So we have 350,000. So the PMT is the total value that the total contribution that we get in part A. So negative 986.25. CPY 12. CPY 12. Okay, because deposit is made monthly, then the interest rate is compounded monthly. Okay, so key in all this value in the calculator, then we should be able to get FV equals to 655.539.45. Okay, so the next part of the question, Joel retires at 67 and wants to use his lump sum payment to set up a regular income. So he decided to look at 2 of the options here. So which means that this is the part where he was still working and he earned this much of money in the investment fund. So now this investment fund will be changed to an annuity account that, either annuity or perpetuity, but for now, basically, he retires already, so that's why he's not earning any money anymore. So that's why this account is supposed to generate the regular income for him. Okay, so he decides to look at 2 of the options that offers monthly payment. So the PPY is 12. Okay, so option 1, the reducing balance annuity at 7.5% per annum compounded monthly, then annuity, or option 2 is a perpetuity compounded monthly. So C, calculate his maximum monthly income for the next 20 years using option 1. Okay, so we are finding the PMT, and supposedly that should be able to generate him the income for 20 years. So that's why the N is 20 multiplied 12. Okay, we're doing the income for monthly. Okay, so 240. I 7% as given in the question. So PV is supposed to be the value that he has now when he is 67. So this is the amount that we put in the bank so that it can generate the interest at the same time while he withdraw the money, right? So that's why negative. PMT is what we are interested to find. FV, the annuity will be die off. Okay, then the PPY is 12. Withdrawal is made monthly. CPY is 12 because interest is made monthly. So from that, then we should be able to get PMT equals to 5,082.39. Okay, so that's part C. Okay, so for part D, you're going to do the exactly same thing, but it's just that now become perpetuity already lah. So for perpetuity, to calculate the PMT, then the N you can put anything as what we have discussed just now. Okay, the PV and MV supposed to be the same at all time. Okay, so you do not need to have a specific N for that. So putting the I 7.5% as given in the question, PV is the same as the previous one. Okay, but then because of we are doing an perpetuity, so that's why we expect the FV wouldn't be decreasing. So that's why the FV is still the same. Okay, PPY and CPY doesn't change. Okay, so key in the entire thing in the calculator, then we should be able to get PMT equals to 4097.12. Okay, so that's the PMT law. So the same idea for all this question of 2 marks. So working the entire thing that you key in your calculator, you get 1 mark, final answer 1 mark. Okay, calculator 1 mark, final answer 1 mark, calculator 1 mark, final answer 1 mark. Okay, so for this question, because the PPY and CPY is the same, so that's the other alternative that you can straight away, if you understand how to calculate the monthly interest. Remember, withdrawal should be equal to the interest, right? So then you can just find out the interest, which is like the value, then multiply by the interest rate divided by 12. Okay, then you should be able to get the exactly same thing. Okay, so either way that you are doing, you should be able to get the same answer. Okay, so that's all the questions that we need to discuss. So while you're checking your answer, try to understand, the mistake and so on. If you got any question, feel free to just text me. Okay, all right. So all the best preparing for your test.